Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
Let the dogs out. You know, like, who let the dogs out? Who?
Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. Always available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Always available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Welcome on this Thursday. We are loaded up, so glad to have those that are already waiting. We certainly appreciate that. You want content, stuff to talk about? We've got it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Good morning, Travis. How are you? How about them basketball balls, he says. We will talk about that, of course, and the Vols with just a really frustrating night in the mid-state area. So, man, I'm just really curious about which direction this team is headed. We'll be joined by Josh Ward of the Sports Animal in Knoxville very shortly. We'll get his thoughts, and we'll talk Tennessee's press conferences as they announce, I guess officially, or at least put them in front of the podium, the coaching changes. Alec Ablin is your tight ends coach. I thought a really interesting take from Jacob Warren, how they knew that he was semi-auditioning for the job during bowl practice. If you haven't checked that out, go to offthehooksports.com. Also, the NFL draft, 7 Vols invited to the combine. Jimmy Himes had a great piece on where Hendon Hooker might go, and I hear Darnell Wright could creep into the first round. I'm not surprised. We'll discuss who will have the best career. And then Bill Connolly talks about the returning talent overall for Tennessee. And what did you think of that column? And then we'll bring Josh Ward in here very shortly. But what were your thoughts on that column by Connolly and what Tennessee has returning? In terms of production, it's hard to say that Tennessee has a lot coming back because you have Jalen Hyatt. Tillman wasn't as productive. You have Jalen Hyatt moving on. You have Hendon Hooker moving on. Just your thoughts on what Tennessee has coming back this season before we get to Josh.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is, as Bill Connolly noted, they are actually in the bottom half of returning talent. They're like number 69. They were among the top teams last year in returning talent. I think this is a bigger deal than people realize. And the reason I say that is that, yes, this offense is easy to figure out. We've talked about how simple it is, but sometimes when an offense is simple to figure out, well, then when you play your best in the offense is when you just have a good feel for everybody you've been playing with. It's similar to the flex offense in basketball, which is a very simple offense. That's what Bruce Pearl ran, but it does work better if you've been together for 2 or 3 years. That's why Maryland won a national title in 2002 in basketball, because 4 of the guys that were running that flex offense have been playing together for 3 years. I think there's a similarity in football. And so I think this is going to be an issue, particularly on the offensive line. That's where if there's one spot that might be a little complicated to pick up certain things, it could be on the line, and there's chemistry that definitely matters when you're playing with linemen. So I think this is more significant than people realize. I think the one thing working in Tennessee's favor is the schedule to start next year is so easy. It's a lot easier than the schedule to start this past year. And schedule to start this past year was pretty easy. So
very true. Let's talk to Josh Ward of the Sports Animal. His appearance brought to you by Zool Beer Company, xulbeer.com. If you're on the audio platform, Zool Beer has great parking downtown and just a fantastic place to hang out, and worldwide award-winning craft beer. And Josh joins us now with the Sports Animal. Josh, your favorite at Zool is?
I don't know. Rhymes like dimes. I don't know that I have a favorite. Love that one. The IPA selection is terrific. So part of it is taste. What is your taste? You'll find something that ends up being your favorite.
Yep. And no doubt about it. Great parking downtown too, which you just don't hear. Josh, let's dive into this Tennessee basketball team. Your thoughts on the game last night and the past 10 days or so, I guess 8 days or so. This basketball team seems to be losing its rudder a bit.
Well, at least they're not peaking at the wrong time. You could say that, unless they peaked against Texas and they don't get it back. That would be the fear. But since that game, when Tennessee looked terrific against one of the better teams in the country, Tennessee hasn't looked anything like that in the last 3 games. And we can point to shooting. We went into the week, though, saying, okay, what's going on with Julian Phillips? What's happening with Tyreek Key? And remove the play late by Julian Phillips. He provided something for Tennessee. Tyreek Key was terrific. He did more than you would ask for Tennessee shooting the basketball, but they didn't have enough around those guys. And Tobe Awaka coming off the bench was a positive, made a mistake late, fouling a 3-point shooter. So what is going on? I don't know. The injury to Josiah Jordan-James, another injury, that is a concern coming out of this. But the guys that you look to step up, Olivier Nkamhoua, he had a terrific performance against Texas. He was awesome. Wrote about it on Off the Hook Sports, the website. I think what I wrote still stands, but we haven't seen that level of play. And if that's not going to happen, there's only so much offense you're going to get from a walk, and you might have mistakes that cancel it out. Jonas Adu has not been a big factor here recently for Tennessee, and I don't think they have a ton of confidence in Uros Plavsic. Didn't see him off the bench. So, coming out of the Texas game, one concern I had was how many guys can you count on a night-to-night basis? And if you're only getting 3 or 4 guys that step up, then you're going to be limited offensively in what you can do, and your defense is only going to take you so far. All that being said, I still have confidence in Zakai Ziegler being able to bounce back as long as he doesn't run out of legs the rest of the way. And Vescovi, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to hit clutch shots, miss the free throw, but he hit 2 threes late that really mattered for Tennessee. This team can still be fine. And teams that go to the Final Four or go to the Elite Eight or Sweet 16 run into these kinds of stretches every single year. It's not uncommon at all, but they have to get it figured out. And fans that are saying, I've seen this before. This is what's going to happen in March. I don't have a counter to that until Tennessee proves that statement wrong.
I could see that. I could see them turning things around. Please hit the like button. That helps us bring more viewers in, and the subscribe button if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate that. And but Josh, my issue with this team is they seem so easy to stop. They drop it down low, and then all of the defensive guard play is around the perimeter because I don't think that they're afraid of the post presence. It seems like, and you may be right, this may just be a dry spell and they're fine, but it seems like they've been figured out.
Well, I mentioned Olivier Nkamhoua. If he doesn't play at a high level offensively, then that's probably true. He's a guy that has a skill set that can go toward the basket or step out. He can hit long-range shots. He can hit shots from the high post. He's a guy that is versatile enough to change what defenses try to do. And defensively, should be able to help Tennessee. Like the mistake that Awaka made, you'd like to think that Olivier would not have made that on the floor. But Olivier was on the bench, then came in and subbed out Awaka. Josiah is a guy that he's been too streaky, where they don't beat Auburn without the way that he played, but they would have beaten Vanderbilt if he shot the ball better. And we're not having this conversation, at least not to this level with that kind of concern. Again, now there's the injury issue. So are they easy to figure out? Probably at times. That's why I think we've talked about key shooting ability and Julian Phillips, because he does add the dynamic. He made a play where he beat his defender with ease, drove to the basket, and had a reverse layup that looked like the elite level talent that he was rated as coming in. But that has to happen more consistently. And is that on Julian? Is that on Tennessee's coaching staff? Is the coaching staff's job to figure out how to get Julian Phillips more involved and get him more opportunities? And even late, the mistake that he made, I still don't understand exactly what was said in the timeout. Yes, he should know to just dunk the basketball and go up 4, but obviously he did not. So why not? That to me comes back to the sideline.
Josh, Jimmy Hyams had a piece for us about, I want to say 2 weeks ago, talking about Tennessee's Final Four potential. And he mentioned it was kind of an aside, but I think it's a bigger deal than we even realized at the time, that there's chatter that Rick Barnes is so stresses toughness so much and grinds his team that they start to get worn down as the season goes on, which can prove costly. I remember when he was at Texas, he had a team that started, what was it, like 17-0 and got to number 1. And then they finished 7-10 the year. I think that was 2009, 2010 Texas. I'm getting a lot of vibes of that Texas team that he had. These teams that start really hot through December and January, get to the top 5 and just it's not new for Rick Barnes teams to just slip and slide down the stretch of the year. And
Yeah,
is that
I mean,
a problem?
yeah, maybe so. It's just, man, we're snapping our fingers for it to happen, to look so good and dominate the way the Vols did against Texas, and then 3 or 4 days later go to Gainesville and play so poorly. Like, why did it happen that quickly? I don't know. And for Tennessee to be the best defense in the country, and they haven't looked like it the last week and a half. And yeah, it's easy to have one game where you slip up. I mean, that's going to happen. That's guaranteed. But for now it to become some kind of stretch where, okay, didn't play that well against Florida, lost the game, should come back at home and look really good against Auburn. Didn't. Was kind of fortunate to get out of there with the win. And then a Vanderbilt team that you've already played and tested you in Knoxville, we don't see Tennessee respond against Vanderbilt. So now it's a week and a half with a bigger stretch coming up. We are going to find something out about this team because you have Missouri coming to town, and Missouri can score. And it's not a great team, but it's a quality team in the league. Then you play Alabama, which is the best team in the league, maybe the best team in the country. And then you go to Lexington to take on a team that's not very good, but was better than you several weeks ago. So we'll find out more here in a week and a half to see how this team responds. And again, unfortunately, it might be a response that's needed without just Jordan James, but they have played without him this season. The ability is still there. Well, one thing to the point of, do you run their legs out, which I wondered with Sakai. That's more position specific. They just don't have a lot of point guard help, but this has looked like a deeper team, right? When you look at the bench that includes Tyreek Key and Tobe Awaka, and who's come on. I mean, he was unexpected at the beginning of the season. Adu and Meshack and Plavsic. They have a bunch of guys that they have shown confidence in. I mean, we're talking probably about the deepest team that Rick Barnes has had at Tennessee, but it has not shown up enough for the concern to go away.
Let me ask you this. And portions of the program brought to you by Zach England of Best and Brock. Zach England, your personal injury attorney in the Chattanooga area, can go toe-to-toe with the insurance companies, attorneys, and make sure you get your just rewards if you're involved in an accident. Zach England of Best and Brock. Zach's got your back. If I made you bet right now as far as how far this team goes in the tournament, and I'll give you an incomplete too, because you mentioned they could turn it around and hit a dry spell as they have. But I mean, right now, based off this team and its defensive prowess, which doesn't often turn out to be fruitful in the tournament, and their guard play, which is up and down, where do you think this team ends up?
Well, maybe I sound foolish here. I still like Tennessee's chances to go to the Sweet 16 because of the position they should be in. Tennessee has a good chance to be a 2 or a 3 seed, which gives you an advantage going in to where you need to win 2 games. It's a 4-team tournament to get to the Sweet 16. And the first round matchup should be an easy one for Tennessee. Should is a funny word in the NCAA tournament, but you should get to the next round. And then can you be better than a team that's not as good as you? And we're last year against Michigan, and that's the obvious fear. But if they stay healthy enough, like that to me has been the bigger concern. I've already mentioned Sakai a couple times, but can he hold up? Vescovi's dealt with the shoulder injury this season, and I wonder how much that's affected him as he's shot the ball better and worse at times through conference plays, had to miss a little time this season. And then we have Josiah's injury again. Can they hold up? But if they hold up well enough, then they should be good enough in the first weekend to get to the Sweet 16. And then at that point, I'd be lying if I said I love their chances, but that applies to most teams. But if they don't get to the Sweet 16, and we assume they don't rally here to win the SEC regular season title, and if they don't win the SEC tournament, then this season is going to be viewed by just about everybody as a failure because the talent is in place and the experience coming back along with somebody like Phillips coming in and Awaka being a surprise. That's a newcomer that people didn't really talk about during the offseason. The personnel is in place. So if they hold up and are healthy enough, they absolutely should get to the Sweet 16. That's why I still say that. But if they don't, it'll be a big disappointment.
No, and I wonder if some people's minds, excuse me, if it might be a disappointment just making it to the Sweet 16, which it shouldn't, but I wonder aloud if that might
I think that would be disappointing in the moment. But if you take a step back and say, okay, look at the history of Tennessee basketball. Look at how many teams have been a top 2 or 3 seed, and it's still so difficult to get beyond that point that, yes, if you're in the Sweet 16 and you're a 2 or 3 seed, then you absolutely should, or a 4 seed, whatever. You should be disappointed losing that game and not being able to advance. Tennessee's been to 1 Elite 8 ever. So the disappointment of not making it happen again would be there. But the perspective of how difficult it is should override that, in my opinion.
I want to turn to football. Portions of the program brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. They're your HVAC repair people and dealership there in the Knoxville area. Integrity matters, over 50 years in service. Cityheatandair.com, City Heating and Air Conditioning. Tennessee decides to promote from within, and I understand the thinking behind it. Because this is Josh Heupel's offense. He's not going to go out and get somebody on the offensive side that suddenly does something crazy like flip-flopping offensive lines, Dave Clawson style. But, Josh, what do you think of the propensity for Josh Heupel, not only this year, but last year with Kelsey Pope, to hire from within?
It probably tells us something about the emphasis on understanding the system and exactly what Josh Heupel wants to teach on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know if he would make the same move on the defensive side, and I'm sure it would matter who we're talking about if somebody on the defensive staff were to leave and you had to promote from within. But offensively, with the promotion at wide receivers coach, tight ends coach, and the offensive coordinator position, they all make sense. The Kelsey Pope hire last year, I was like, okay, I don't know. Let's see his resume, and look at his resume now. A year later, his resume has a Biletnikoff Award winner on it. No Tennessee receivers coach has that on his resume at Tennessee besides Kelsey Pope. So it's a pretty good start there. And that also has to come back to the system, right? And that's where the confidence fans will have, understandably so, is, hey, I'm going to trust Josh Heupel to make the right decision with who he's going to have coach these positions, and also have his system still allow the players to perform. At some point, he'll have to replace a defensive coach. We'll see, is that an overall mindset, or is it more specific to what he's doing on the offensive side? To me, what they need to make sure they do is continue to recruit at a higher level moving forward. And I think with Darnell Wright, the way that he's been able to improve his draft stock at Tennessee to now being a projected first rounder by some, that will help get more talent in the offensive line. That's where they need to upgrade moving forward. And with Alex Golish leaving and Abelin stepping into that position, he needs to help Tennessee continue to recruit at a higher level moving forward. They have more results on the field, but they still need better talent. They were good enough to upset Alabama, but they also had a thin enough margin where they could lose to South Carolina the way they did. And obviously you're trying to catch Georgia, which has the best talent in the country. So they have to recruit at a higher level. That, to me, is more of the emphasis on what needs to happen with the coaching changes, continue to get better players. If they do, especially on the offensive side, the coaching will take care of itself.
Josh, yesterday Joey Halsey was talking about the Orange Bowl a little bit, and it's something that kind of raised my eyes because I just don't really believe him. But he said he was insisting that he was asked about the Orange Bowl, and he said the Orange Bowl's still us. We're that team. We're going to kind of run this, basically alluding they're going to have the same philosophy as what they had in that game. How true is that? I felt like Clemson really played a certain type of coverage that really affected how Tennessee's game plan was in the Orange Bowl. Are we going to see that same team with Joe Milton at quarterback that was in that bowl game as opposed to what we saw most of last year?
Well, I'm sure what Tennessee will do will still be affected by what they face on the opposing side. Clemson with big guys up front will be different than how you view some teams. But Georgia, that they were trying to figure out exactly what was the option. Can we find some yards to take? I think that would have been the plan if they had gotten a playoff rematch, let's say, against Georgia later in the season compared to what they had seen down in Athens. So Joe's going to be different than what Hendon was and what they ask him to do, how he's going to run the football, but he still has to run it. I still wonder the quarterback position itself. So we can talk about the offense, or we can talk about the personnel. They have two scholarship quarterbacks, and maybe there's more confidence in Gaston more than I would expect on the outside. But like right now, we're not hearing for sure that they want to go out and get a quarterback. They have two scholarship quarterbacks. That's just not enough. I don't think 3 is enough. So to not have more than 2, nobody in the country is going to think that that's enough. So that'll give you an idea of how much they're going to tell us. But Tennessee, what Tennessee does, they're going to run the football, and they're going to emphasize it more than we probably talk about on the outside. That's going to be out of the running back spot. I think Cameron Seldon is a guy that could change what they're able to do personnel-wise because his skill set is different than what they had on the roster last year with Wright and Jabari Small coming back. But they're going to run the football. they're going to call some runs for Joe Milton, but his ability to escape and make plays is not going to be quite the same as what Hendon was able to do. But as long as they have coming back on the offensive line, Cooper Mays to help lead up front, and Joe with the connection he was able to start creating with Squirrel White, that slot position, you saw Velus Jones 2 years ago. You saw Jalen Hyatt last year. I think you'll see Squirrel White with the big opportunity. Thornton coming in as a transfer is going to be able to help stretch the field. They've shown us what they want. They had Peyton 2 years ago who was able to help stretch. Tillman's a guy that could do that but suffered the injury, and now Thornton's going to get an opportunity to do that. And then obviously Brew McCoy in year 2 will have a bigger opportunity understanding the system. But I don't think Tennessee's going to change too much what it is.
I will say this, and maybe I'm in the minority of the three of us. I do think that there will be tweaks to the offense based off the arm ability I saw of Joe Milton. I think you'll see more slants, more dig routes over the middle, and I don't think they were comfortable with Hendon Hooker throwing that. And I don't think Joe Milton, even though he has a strong arm, doesn't throw the deep ball as well as Hendon Hooker, who might have thrown the deep ball better than anybody in college football last year. I think you will see tweaks in that regard. Is that what you guys were kind of questioning? Or because I saw a lot of that from Joe Milton. It was accurate, and it was in there, right in the breadbasket.
Maybe so. With Jalen Hyatt, I don't know how much confidence there was with they played to his strengths, and they did it very well. I still think it's personnel, what they believe Squirrel White can do. The screen game is going to be a huge part of what they ask their receivers to do: get the ball out and try to make a play, and then go. That's what they're going to do in the passing game. So, I mean, maybe so, but with Hendon versus Joe, his ability to stretch the field with his arm, we saw it 2 years ago. They're still going to go back to that. So, what do they trust Thornton to do coming in? They'll learn that this spring, and I think that's the case. But I don't. What they want to do under Josh Heupel as the head coach is not going to change much. There might be tweaks, but an overall change to it, I don't expect that at all.
Yeah, they're not going to run the veer or wishbone or anything. No, I definitely don't mean that. I just think slight tweaks, like you said.
Moving over to the other side of the ball, Josh, the elephant in the room was obviously the secondary last year, particularly the South Carolina game. But I wanted to ask a little bit. Tim Banks was speaking yesterday. He spoke a little bit about how excited he is about the freshmen. And he also noted a point that kind of stood out to me, which was that they weren't as deep in the secondary last year, and not as many guys were able to get reps in the spring, and that proved costly in the fall. And then, of course, Warren Burrell got hurt, which caused even bigger problems. And he did allude to the idea that they're deeper, and he touted how excited he was about the freshmen. What are the chances that either somebody like Jordan Matthews, Ricky Gibson, one of the freshman defensive backs, becomes a starter next year in the secondary?
I think a pretty good chance. They really like these guys. They like their ability. They brought in Gabe Judy-Lawley for a reason. There's a good chance that he's a starter at corner. But late in the season last year, I'm not sure who they really trust. I think they like the way that Danico Slaughter plays. That's a player to watch to see exactly where he fits into the secondary. John Slaughter got a lot of talk, so maybe we see the Slaughter boys out there both in this secondary. But Slaughter's a guy that's not as highly ranked in this class, but showed up in December, and Tim Banks likes him a lot. So he's somebody to pay attention to. And then Jordan Matthews, I think, absolutely is a guy to pay attention to there at corner. But bringing in this group of freshmen, it creates competition. Having Judy-Lawley come in, he's a guy that knows how to play. I would bet on him being a starter, but that's not guaranteed because of the young talent that's coming in. But he's a guy that he's played in the SEC. It was at Vanderbilt, went to BYU, was probably their best corner. Now he's a lot older. He's going to show up on the practice field and know what to do right away while the freshmen are learning to do that. And coaches are going to trust players that they know what to do on the field. So I think there's a good chance that he has a spot, but they needed to be better at safety last year. I don't think there's any question about that. And late in the season when they dealt with injuries, they had guys out there, I still think, because they had to. Kamal Haddon, when he's getting beaten and talking trash, I think a big reason he stayed on the field is because they said, well, somebody has to. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. They'll have freshmen that will come in and push because of their talent, and older players will play if they do because they've improved and they've learned how to beat those guys out. Let's see if they add another player after the spring. They tried to get the transfer from Ole Miss, missed out on him. So that still says that, watch what the coaches do. They'll tell you, hey, do we need more players? And talent's going to be a factor there. But they said, yeah, we might need one more guy to come in and play. So they could make that decision after the spring as well when the transfer portal opens back up. But I don't think there's any question that they're deeper. They'll have real competition this upcoming year. And then, of course, they just have to go out there and make plays.
Hey, I want to, real quick, one last thing, Josh. I know you got to run, but I want to flip back to the offensive side. Travis saying, I think Jabari Small will be a monster, really freeing up Joe. I think a running back will be a monster to free up Joe Milton, but I think his name's Dylan Sampson. I know he's light, and we think of him as a change-up back, but it's who is in there in key situations, and I just love his explosion. And with this offense, I don't think you take a lot of big hits as a running back. I think he can have a really big year, if not push Jabari for perhaps a starting position.
Yeah, I mean, I expect Jalen Wright to have more of an opportunity, but not greatly, probably. Sampson is a guy that it was obvious when he was on the field and he got the football that he could go very quickly at a different speed than his teammates back there. So you have to involve him in the offense. Speed is something that, despite losing Jalen Hyatt, they can still use to an even greater advantage, I think, this upcoming year because you have Squirrel White coming back. Thornton, we've talked about him and what he's able to do. Different skill set as a big, long wide receiver. But Sampson is that guy out of the backfield. Selden can run too. I mentioned him earlier, but he's a guy that can line up in different spots. He can line up as a running back. He can line up in the slot. He's a player that has legit size and speed that can change what an offensive coach wants to do. But acceleration and the ability to hit the hole and go, Dylan Sampson, I thought, showed last year that he was better. Was he the better player? I'm not saying that, but in terms of speed and burst, he was obviously the best player in the backfield last year for Tennessee.
Josh, who you got in the Super Bowl? Please don't say the evil Philadelphia Eagles. They're just terrible, terrible people.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of the crazy one for being on the Chiefs side. I think the Chiefs have the better coach. I think they have the better quarterback. And the Eagles are loaded with talent, and I do think it's a good game. We've gotten a lot of good games recently. I think this is another one. But I don't know. Despite injury concerns on offense, alongside Patrick Mahomes, still going with Mahomes to win the Super Bowl. They're the underdog. There's a media member covering Philly saying, if you're building a quarterback, it's not Mahomes, it's Jalen Hurts. And I love Hurts. I think he's a great story. I think he's one of the best leaders in the NFL. But if I'm building a quarterback, out of all the quarterbacks that have played in the NFL, I'm probably building Patrick Mahomes. So they see that stuff. They got fired up about the Burrowhead talk, and motivation only takes you so far. But if you have the best quarterback who's extra motivated, I'll take that side.
Well, I'm often compared to NFL quarterbacks. And I will tell you this. I have had a shoulder injury, and I used to be able to chuck it okay. But when you have a shoulder injury and you have to put torque on that shoulder, and talk about Jalen Hurts, I think that's the injury that's not talked about enough. I mean, it's hard to put your body in torque and the twist, and when it all relies on that shoulder. To me, we talk about the Mahomes injury more than we do the Hurts injury. That's the big one to me.
It could be. The Eagles are a little weird to talk about because their team is terrific personnel-wise. Just mentioned that, and they've benefited from having a quarterback on a rookie deal, so they can go out and make a move for somebody like A.J. Brown. And Devontae Smith's a really good player. He's on a rookie deal there at receiver. But that defense, the talent they have there, Kelsey on the offensive line, Lane Johnson, they have one of the better O-lines in the NFL. But with Jalen Hurts, he didn't have to show us exactly what he could do because they were blowing out opponents in the playoffs. The Giants didn't test them, and then the 49ers didn't have a quarterback for a lot of that game, so it was just over, and there was no second-half test. That's not going to be the case against the Chiefs, so I'm not going to be surprised at all if the Eagles win. They're terrific, but I'm going to side with the Chiefs, and I'm going to side with Patrick Mahomes. I know people are aware, but watching him go for 325 in an AFC title game against a really good team with a great quarterback on the other side when he's playing with a leg and a half, I still don't think that's gotten enough coverage of what Mahomes did a week and a half ago.
I agree.
It's crazy.
Josh, what's the one team you hate the most? I know you're a Raiders fan.
Well, it used to be the Patriots because of the Tuck Rule game. I've made peace with that.
Peace with that. He went to mass.
Yeah. So, the Chiefs are in the division, but I don't have a big beef with the Chiefs. I like Andy Reid, and Trey Smith is there, so good for him. I enjoy saying that I hate the Broncos because I love John Wilkerson so much, and he is a huge Broncos fan and John Elway fan. So, my favorite team to say that I hate is the Denver Broncos.
Still remember John going out to see the Broncos play in 2001, and it happened to be 9/11, and he couldn't get a flight, and he just bumped into a person who happened to be a Tennessee fan that said, "Aren't you John Wilkerson?" And
Yeah.
he had to drive back with somebody he just met in the line to rent a car, and they drove all the way back from Denver.
Yeah, I didn't even know that story until just a few months ago. It's a crazy story, but a good one considering the circumstance. He loves the Broncos. So anytime on the radio I can get a dig in at the Broncos in hopes of John listening, I will do that. I would say just, like a lot of people in America hate the Cowboys, but you were probably asking about relevant teams. So I left them off the list.
Hey,
Well, I want to point out, whoever said on the side note, Jalen Hurts is a better build for a quarterback than Patrick Mahomes and is a Philly media guy, did Philly such a disservice. Because I've always said Philly media is my favorite media because they're the most objective media. Well, that guy just let them down.
Well, and we have to be, it's Twitter and it's one person's opinion. The best part about the tweet was that he added in, "This is a fact, not opinion." It's like, well, there's another conversation to be had, but even Eagles fans jumped in and said, whoa, he doesn't speak for us, because the Eagles, in a heartbeat, as much as they love Jalen Hurts, would trade him for Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs would not listen to any kind of call, contracts included. So it's just insane, and this is week 2 of Super Bowl week. So crazy stuff comes out, but if I'm on the Chiefs side, I'm putting that up everywhere. How Nick Saban says, they said that we can't do it, quote, media. Well, now you actually have a real quote saying that Patrick Mahomes is the second best quarterback in this game. So tell Travis Kelce he'll get all fired up, and then they'll go make some plays.
Well, I have a real reason, just for the record, to hate the Eagles. They cheered when Michael Irvin was paralyzed on the field, when he couldn't move his legs. So that.
Yeah, on my wife's side of the family, there are a lot of Eagles fans. I'm on a group chat that is busy with Eagles talk right now. So these are great people. These are people that break the stereotype that is very much understood, that of throwing batteries at Santa Claus and the Michael Irvin situation. So there are good Eagles fans out there. I can attest to that. But there's the vocal minority. I think the vocal minority are the good people. The majority often will be louder on the Philly side, and it's not so positive.
I have to go up north, and my son said we could always go see a 76ers game because Boston wasn't playing. We're up north. I'm like, no. I'm not going to go. I've had to go in that town once. I'm not going ever again. Josh, have a great show. He's on noon to 3, the Sports Animal in Knoxville, and just absolutely throws heat. And I love how we have the 3 different levels of facial hair going on. We have me. I recently shaved my beard off. We have Caleb, who's going Miami Vice style, and then we have Josh with a full beard.
Yeah, also changing tint day by day, to my beard at least.
I was kidding. Mine was completely white, dude. That's why I got rid of it. I started being called sir, and I think the breaking point was I got some random spam email about joining AARP. And I was like, okay, I got to shave. Have a good day, buddy.
You got it. Thank you, guys.
He is Josh Ward of the Sports Animal. Man, when Josh Ward's beard gets a little white, that makes me feel really old.
Dave, my beard's a little white too now also. So
is it?
Not to make you feel worse.
It happens. I can't say enough about Josh, who bugged me to death to work at 16 years old. So he's just in his 30s and been with the Sports Animal for 20 years. They are blessed to have him. He's absolutely the best. And he's got 3 little kids, so he may need some craft treats, even though they're primarily for pets, because they have the CBD in them. Craft treats is fantastic for your pet. Use the promo code OFFTHEHOOK. Use the promo code OFFTHEHOOK, and craft treats is going to be able to take care of your pet's digestion problems, anxiety, or also arthritis. So that's craft treats. They have other treats as well, but the CBD is what I go with. And those are the chill pills. Use the promo code OFFTHEHOOK. Again, OFFTHEHOOK. The chill pills are absolutely fantastic, but all kinds of great treats. Crafttreats.com. Go to crafttreats.com and use the promo code OFFTHEHOOK. Back in 2 minutes, and then coming up, We will discuss the Vols that are invited to the Combine and who will have the best NFL career. It looks like there are a couple of guys vying for the first round. Former Vols doing good, so to speak. Stay tuned. More after this. Off the Hook Sports 2 Minutes.
Family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Inflation has risen to the highest level in over 40 years, according to the April 2022 U.S. Inflation Calculator. Will your investments provide you the income you need in retirement? Are you losing purchasing power of your savings due to inflation? Simply stated, if the cost of goods and services are 8% higher and you're only earning 4% in your investments, that money buys you less of what you need. Right now is the time to act. Call Guardian Investment Advisors today.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant.
It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes, folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. Billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Chattanooga, we're at it again. For the 5th year in a row, you voted us best of the best criminal and DUI law firm.
And finalists for best law firm and best personal injury firm.
Thank you for the love, Chattanooga. We won't let you down.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I'm a big rock.
Welcome back. He's Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker. I want to remind you, you heard that just a moment ago, mention of Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. I highly suggest them. I had my LASIK surgery, and I can see like an eagle far away, so distance is never a problem anymore. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, they are local and absolutely fantastic. They take care of me, and there will be other doctors that will fly in from all over the place, including Florida, and you don't know your doctor. I do have an appointment with him for a checkup. Everything's going great. That's Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn on Weisgarber. They can help you with LASIK for the distance vision that I was dealing with, and they can also help with cataracts and all that great stuff. And Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn also has multiple vision centers where you can be absolutely taken care of just for your normal checkup and those sorts of things. So Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. David said Caleb must have naturally white hair traits. Still looks like a kid, and he would absolutely card you. I don't think you're cardable.
Guess my age, David.
What are you, 33, 34?
Yeah, I'm 34.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think kid.
I love getting carded. I still do get carded after I shave. He's not lying on that.
Yeah, that hasn't happened. I get asked if I have a senior citizen discount. I get that every once in a while. Okay, so
well, my college ID discount, I still have my college ID, and it still helps me get like $6 movie pass discounts near Maryland's campus.
that's interesting. So, does it say you're 18, or how do those work?
No, it's just an ID that you get a college ID that shows where you went to college, and it's like they have like discount nights for college kids at like different restaurants and movie theaters and things like that. And I might be incriminating myself here, I don't know, but yes, I'm not going to pretend that I haven't gone to these places and shown my college ID and gotten discounts.
I think you can do that just as long as you don't try to use some sort of military discount. That's where you get in trouble. What is it called? Dishonoring, or what is the term?
Dishonorable discharge.
No, the people that act like they've been in the army to get
impersonating. Isn't that illegal? Or I know it's illegal to impersonate a police officer, I think, or a surgeon. But
yeah, well, you'll have people that'll show up and they'll try to get love from the public that are dressed up like a real stolen valor is the term. Thank you. Yeah, that to me is like the most disgusting thing. And there are a couple of videos online where they get called out in person, and I do love those. I get just pulled into those and watch them.
Remember that woman that faked like being like in the World Trade Center when 9/11 happened and like acted like she got out and was part of these like 9/11 survival groups, and she was like nowhere near New York City when it happened?
No, I don't remember that. I'm not surprised it happened. Because it was mass chaos, and somebody could see that if they don't have any integrity, you could see that as a way to take advantage of a situation. Disgusting. And the same thing, I love our military, and I love what they do on all levels. And for somebody to go out there and go to the trouble of getting a military outfit and to have the medals and all that sorts of thing just is beyond me. I'm not perfect, Caleb. None of us are, but to be so orchestrated and planned out to basically steal that sort of esteem from our military who could die for our freedom is just beyond me. Anyway, got a little sidetracked. Portions of the program brought to you by Vandy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive, whether you're in Knoxville, Nashville, or Cleveland. Vandy Lawn and Garden. They have the industrial mowers you need, the commercial mowers you need, and they also have the residential mowers. But if you're restocking your fleet on a corporate level or you're starting your own business, nobody is going to give you better prices than the Vandy Lawn and Garden on those industrial and commercial mowers because they absolutely have more buying power than other places. All right. 7 Vols invited to the Combine. List those off for us, Caleb, and then I want to ask the question, among those Vols, who will have the best NFL career? And a lot of times it is a surprise. Sometimes it's not. But a lot of times it's not the first guy picked. So who are the guys right now that have been invited to the Combine? And let's go through them one by one.
All right, so just to name them, starting off, Hendon Hooker, not a shock to anybody. Cedric Tillman, not a shock. Jalen Hyatt, not a shock. Darnell Wright, to anybody that's been covering him, not a shock. And Byron Young, not a shock. Jeremy Banks, not a shock. The one maybe surprise, Paxton Brooks, the punter.
Okay. Paxton Brooks up there. And I imagine Hendon Hooker will just be there for the medical. And he'll go through all the medical tests. I don't think he's going to throw. By the way, he was on the Pat McAfee show, and it was so uncomfortable. And shame on Tennessee for tweeting this out. I know Pat McAfee's kind of a big deal and all that, but Pat McAfee has him come out and opens it up with a GD. And you have Hendon Hooker is very religious. So regardless of what you think about language and whether GD is part of your daily lexicon, it's still, I mean, be mindful of the guy who is coming on, who is a very professed Christian. I just thought that was very off-putting, despite whatever religion you might be. So let's go through these guys. I want to play star, starter, or struggle. Okay, so each one you pick star, starter, or struggle. And star would be a guy that makes a couple of Pro Bowls, although that's not difficult to do now because everybody turns it down. I don't want to say all pro necessarily, but I think a couple of these guys might be. And then starter is a guy that hangs on in the league for 4, 6, 8 years and has a good career, but is never considered even a Pro Bowl or an all pro type of player. Travis says, read the room. Absolutely. And then struggle is a guy things have got to break his way for him to have a major impact. So you start us off, give me a player, and I'll tell you star, starter, or struggle, and then I'll get your thoughts. And I want to get thoughts from those on the message board as well. We greatly appreciate that. And I felt absolutely naked yesterday without my message board access. Still don't know what happened, but we're in there. So Smoky Mountain Red said, I think Pat does that on purpose. In my opinion, he mocked Tebow during the college playoff game. I didn't know that. I got a lot of respect for Pat McAfee from a professional business standpoint, doing what he did, leaving the NFL and starting up his podcast. But that I didn't know that, Smoky Mountain Red. That to me is off-putting, and I didn't really like that about Hendon Hooker. You wouldn't say something Jewish about if he happened to be Jewish. Anyway, don't want to get too sidetracked. But here we go. So give me one off the top. You want to start with Hendon Hooker?
Yeah, let's just go in the order that they were named. So let's start with Hendon Hooker.
Okay, let's save Hendon Hooker. Let's tease Hendon Hooker as the last one. That's a little trick I learned in the biz. So let's start with wherever you want to go other than Hendon Hooker, because I've got some pretty significant, strong feelings on him. Here we go.
All right, well, let's go the reverse way then. Let's go with Paxton Brooks.
Paxton Brooks will be a starter, I feel very firmly.
I'm with you. I know some of his averages were a little bit mediocre, but I think that had to do with Heupel's offense and then moving the ball so much. He didn't really have the chance to do what Dustin Colquitt had in 2003, which was just boot some giant 60-yarders. So I'm with you. I'm sorry, starter on Paxton Brooks.
Absolutely. Okay. So, and it just seems that over and over again, you've seen punters make it, even some that were just at Tennessee for a couple of minutes. And that would be seeing Tommy Townsend out there a couple of weekends ago. So, yeah, it just seems like punters from Tennessee make it, carrying on the Colquitt tradition. All right, who's next?
All right, Jeremy Banks.
Jeremy Banks, starter. No question in my mind. He has the ability. He will be a starter, but I don't believe he will be a standout player.
I am, and maybe this is personal, but I'm going struggle. And I do believe intangibles matter. If you're not smart enough to understand some people make more NIL money than you in college, how are you going to handle the NFL where a lot of people are making more money than you? And also, Jeremy Banks is terrible in pass coverage. I can't stress that enough.
And the NFL is a passing first league even more than college football. So you bring up a very good point. I might steal that in a column coming up.
All right. Next, here's a tricky one. Byron Young.
Yeah, that is a tricky one. I'll say starter. I mean, I hate to go starter 3 for 3. Maybe I'm supposed to shake it up a little bit, but I'll go Byron Young as a starter.
I will too. I don't think he's ever going to be a star, and I don't think he'll start his first couple of years, but I think he's a hard worker. He really does what he needs to do, and he has the measurables to be able to be in the NFL, and he's a really good hard worker and a great guy. So I think that those things can really lead to you being a starter and hanging around in the league. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and the backstory, he's worked really, really hard to get to this point. I don't see him suddenly signing a middle round contract where he makes a few $100,000 and saying that's enough. I think he's driven to go beyond that, get to that second contract and make some real cash. All right, who's next?
Yeah. Okay. Let's go with Darnell Wright.
I'm going to say star. I believe that he will be one of the most physically gifted right tackles in the NFL, which is almost a backhanded compliment. It's like Andy Kelly being the all-time leading passer in the Arena Football League. Most of the great tackles play left tackle. Darnell Wright can do that, but he's a better run blocker. So they'll have him on the right side where you typically put those tackles. But I think he'll be one of the most physically gifted right tackles in the game. He'll also, if it comes up, will be able to flip sides and play left tackle. He can slide into guard, although I don't think that's going to happen. Travis says superstar. I don't know if you're talking about Darnell or Byron Young, but I'm with you. If it's Darnell Young, I go, he will be a star. I don't have any doubt. I think he makes the All-Pro team 2 or 3 years in his borderline Hall of Fame career.
I'm with you. I am so incredibly high on Darnell Wright. I think he's going to be a star too. I got to bring this up real quick, Dave. Think about this for a minute. Did you know the 2020 Tennessee football team that went 3-7? If you guys want to know why Jeremy Pruitt was fired, Cade Mays, Darnell Wright, Trey Smith, Wanye Morris, who just got invited to the NFL Combine, and Cooper Mays, who's going to the NFL, were all starters on that offensive line.
Wow.
Yes. And they went 3-7. And
those guys could all be NFL players for the next 5-6 years.
Yeah. Trey Smith is already a star. I mean, he should be a Pro Bowler if anybody's watched what Trey Smith is doing in Kansas City. And I'm with you, Darnell Wright's going to be a star. Don't know if Wanye Morris will be a starter, whatever, but he got invited to the Combine, and Cade Mays is on an NFL roster, and I think Cooper Mays will get there. So, yeah, Darnell Wright, absolute star. And also another great guy. Maybe not like a leader or a vocal leader, but a mentally tough, really good, hard worker and a smart player too.
All right. What else we got?
All right, moving on. We have, all right, going to the weapons now, skill players. Let's start with Cedric Tillman.
That's a tough one. Because I think he's the most physically gifted between he and Jalen Hyatt. He might be the most physically gifted on this list that's about at the Combine other than Darnell Wright. But I'll tell you, there's some body language things. The fact that Tennessee's offense was better when he wasn't in the game last season, when he was injured, I'm going to say starter. And if I had to pick one that might end up being a bust, it might be Tillman, despite his athletic ability. Is that too harsh?
No, but so you are going starter still, though?
Yeah, starter, not a star.
Yeah, I'm going starter too. He's clocked in a 4.540. I don't think he's that fast, honestly. I don't believe that 40 time that he clocked. I think that he's physically gifted. I don't think he's fast enough to be a star. So I'm with you. I'm going to go starter. I think there will be a roster spot for him. I don't blame him for last year. I think it was just kind of Hooker had trouble acclimating him back to the offense and, was trying to, I think, force a few things his way because that was his favorite target and he, wanted to get him some balls. But, I mean, let's be honest, before he got hurt, Tennessee's not beating Pitt without Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman showed up and he was the one that carried that team to victory against Pitt. And that was a huge win for them last year. So I will say starter.
Yeah, I think that you talk about 40 times. I heard a great story by Dan Orlovsky. He was being recruited by only one team, and that was UConn. And that's back when I covered UConn as part of my Northeast coverage. And UConn showed up, and he knew if he didn't get an offer from UConn, he wouldn't get an offer from anybody. So he said he ran a 5.840. So Randy Edsall shows up, and in order to impress him, he moves the end cone up in the 40-yard dash. He said he ran a 5.840, but he moved it up 5 yards, so he ran a 4.9. And Randy Edsall didn't notice it, and so he got an offer from UConn, and they ended up at UConn. I thought that was a hilarious story. It was a 35-yard.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and then so he shows up to UConn's camp, and he runs like the 5.6, and I'm like, what happened? He goes, that was just a bad day. Go ahead. All right. So who we got next?
All right. So we got two more. This one, I might have a twist for you guys, but Jalen Hyatt.
I'm going to go Jalen Hyatt. I don't want to say everyone's going to be a starter, so I'm going to say struggle. I think that he was a product of the system, and I think that Jalen Hyatt has speed, But as important as that is, I believe that you have to be a great route runner, and I don't know that he necessarily is at this point. So my crazy message board, I've got Jalen struggles. Travis agrees with me, surprisingly. Caleb, you?
I fully agree with you. I think Jalen Hyatt struggles, product of the system. I didn't really see. I mean, again, Josh Ward kind of alluded to this, but we talked about Hendon Hooker not being as great throwing over the middle. I noticed they didn't call a lot of routes for Jalen Hyatt over the middle either.
It's true.
And so I feel like Jalen Hyatt was nothing but a vertical receiver, and you can't just be that in the NFL. You have to go over the middle a little more. And so and then there's the other thing, and I hate to go intangibles. Jalen Hyatt admitted himself he did not, he wasn't all in 2021. And if you can turn it off like that at certain times, I don't think that bodes well for you. You're going to be buried in the roster in the NFL when you first get drafted and have to work your way up. If you're the type where when you're buried in the roster, you're not as committed, you're going to be out of the league in a year. And
you're right. And there's really only one guy, and he improved his game as time went on. But there's really only one guy that was a deep threat to the point that you just couldn't stop him. That's Randy Moss. And there ain't no Randy Moss in this draft. And
no.
It's definitely not Jalen Hyatt. And all right, so who we got left?
All right, we close with
Hendon Hooker. All right. Hendon Hooker will be a borderline star, and I'm not trying to cop out on you. I just think you have. As Travis says, Hendon Hooker struggles. I think you have to be in the perfect position to be able to be a star quarterback. And part of that position is drafted high, being a priority because your salary is going to dictate, Caleb, you know this, how much you play. If they got a 50-50 guy who's making $500,000 or $750,000 at the minimum, and they got a guy who's making $8 million a year, they're going to play the guy who is getting paid $8 million. I don't know that Hendon Hooker is going to be in that position. Probably not. So I would say Hendon Hooker more towards the struggles. I mean, do you consider Joshua Dobbs a struggle? He's not a starter.
Yeah, I was going to say Hendon Hooker reminds me of Dobbs, and I would say between struggle and starter, because Dobbs has been in the NFL for 6 years. I think he was set up to fail by that start with the Titans. They didn't cater the offense to him at all, and I thought that was really unfair to him. The only thing I would say, Hendon Hooker is everything Joshua Dobbs does, plus a big arm. So that's going to give him a few more looks, I think. I say starter, but project. But I do believe in Hendon Hooker as a project because I think Hendon Hooker is a hard worker who is similar to Dobbs, who will do what he's told and will really, really focus on developing his game. But I think he's got a better arm than Dobbs, and that's a big help. And I think that with the right coaching staff, and you have to assume that whoever drafts him, is going to take an interest in him unless he's drafted by the Browns, who are run by the most incompetent person in the history of the world, or the Washington Commanders, the second most incompetent person in the history of the world, runs them. So, but outside of those two, I think whoever drafts him is they're drafting him for a reason, and they understand where his limitations are, and they're going to work behind his game to try to
Travis, clarify real quick with me. Ever notice after he gets sacked, his next two series are garbage? I'm not sure if you're talking about Hendon or you're talking about Joshua Dobbs. So, but weak across the middle, I do think there's a reason that Tennessee didn't throw the slants and dig routes more often, and that is because they didn't trust. It's the same thing that happened with T. Martin, in 98. They didn't throw across the middle a lot, and they've had that situation before. If you've got a quarterback that is a little inaccurate in those intermediate passes, and again, guys, please hit the like button to bring more people in. We appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, do that. But if you can't throw those passes, then coaches aren't going to call those passes because an inaccurate pass over the middle is about 10 times more likely to get intercepted than a deep ball. You suddenly have a tipped up ball and bad stuff happens. So,
but can't you work on that? Like, footwork, things like that. Isn't that something you can kind of like, you can't coach the deep ball Hendon Hooker throws. He's just got that, he just has a pretty deep ball, but can't you coach better accuracy over the middle a little bit in the NFL?
Man, I think you can get better, but I think it's a little bit like shooting in basketball. I think there are just limits. I mean, I'm never going to be a good shooter. I could play basketball, but I'd be lucky to hit 6 of 10 from the free throw line. I mean, I just never was a good shooter. Other guys, friends of mine, were naturally good shooters, and I don't know that he's ever going to be just innately accurate. I think you can work on that to some extent, but are you going to be Joe Montana or any of those guys with just laser accuracy? I just think you can get so much better, and then it's tough to get better after that.
I believe that, but I mean, if he could hit a baseline, you could think that maybe there's room for him somewhere in the NFL, given his mobility and his deep ball. I think today's NFL doesn't require as much pinpoint accuracy if you have some other things to your game. Again, Dobbs' problem is he wasn't that accurate over the middle, and I mean he's got a noodle for an arm. I mean, he just doesn't have that good of an arm.
Well, remember this too, that it's not a knock on Josh Heupel because it works, but he doesn't really teach footwork and resetting your feet. You get back, you plan it, and you make a read on the safety, and you can tell immediately which side of the field it's going to. There's not looking off safeties. So that's going to hurt Hendon Hooker, the lack of acumen in that. It's going to hurt Nico. It's going to hurt Joe Milton, whoever it is. They're going to have to make that adaptation when they go to the NFL of looking off defensive backs and being able to look at the whole field and being able to reset their feet, because they're not taught to do that right now, Caleb.
Oh, yeah. Josh Heupel's the anti-David Cutcliffe, where Josh Heupel is a great scheme, and he focuses and maximizes what players can do, but he doesn't necessarily fully develop them, whereas I think Cutcliffe was very big on actually developing his players to be able to play in the NFL. I think Josh Heupel, what he does is actually more conducive to players nowadays, because I think a lot of coaches in the NFL are willing to develop quarterbacks. They're not just looking for the polished product like they were back in the 90s. I mean, if in the 90s, let's be honest, we talk about it. We said it yesterday. I don't know if Steve Spurrier cheated his quarterbacks or if he helped them just get drafted way above what they ever should have been, because Steve Spurrier didn't really teach quarterbacks how to look off safeties and look through the whole field either that well. And a lot of them were lost when they got to the pros. I mean, the fact that Rex Grossman's the best Florida quarterback in the NFL who played for Spurrier is hilarious.
No, Travis says if Dak Prescott has a job, Hendon Hooker will definitely land a job. Taking a shot at my Cowboys quarterback. Hey, watch it, Travis, because Dak Prescott is at least the 18th best quarterback in the NFL.
Wait, I think the point of that, though, is that Dak Prescott wasn't developed in college either. He ran the spread, and they were able to develop him and tailor their game to him at the same time in the NFL.
Right, but where's Dak Prescott?
He's at least a starter.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been a 6-year starter. He's secured the bag. So, I mean, if Hendon Hooker's career is Dak Prescott's career, I don't think Hooker's going to complain. Okay, you're talking making $50 million at that point, so, or $500 million, or whatever he meant.
Yeah, but there's just so many. I don't know. There's so many weird things that go on with Dak Prescott, and that is the coach. I'm sorry, the owner fell in love with him, Jerry Jones. The owner gave him the big contract. Yeah, I mean, I think Hendon Hooker is probably as gifted as Dak Prescott. And you're right. There's a parallel between the way they were prepared in college or lack thereof.
Jalen Hurts, too, by the way. I mean, Jalen Hurts has limitations, and he's in the Super Bowl right now.
See, Jalen Hurts is a guy that almost like Lamar Jackson, that you can tailor make an offense around. I don't know that Hendon Hooker is that mobile, has that good a running ability.
Yeah, that's true.
I think he's kind of caught somewhere in the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the thing was, Hurts was never taught how to take a second read in college either. If you remember, Brian Dabble, even though he's a pro-style guy, when they were at Alabama, they knew Alabama was so loaded. It was Jalen Hurts, your first read and run. That's it. First read or run. And that's why Georgia should have beaten them in that national title game. Remember, Georgia was pitching a shutout, and then they had to bring in Tua because Tua had the better arm, so he would look the whole field. Hurts was literally coached not to do that at Alabama.
Yep. Great stuff by the message board. We love you weighing in. Tannehill is way worse than Dak. Yeah.
I agree. But Tannehill has one thing. Actually,
I think that's a coin flip. And
No,
I'm a Cowboys fan.
we're talking fits. Now that you say this out loud, now that I'm hearing this out loud, the Titans are a great fit for Hendon Hooker given the style of play he runs. What do the Titans do? They want to run the ball, lull you to sleep, and then play action deep ball. And I think you could teach Hendon Hooker to do that. And so, I mean, Tannehill has a beautiful deep ball. That's the one thing he's got. And guess what? That's something Hendon Hooker's got, and he's more mobile than Ryan Tannehill. So I could. It's funny you brought up Tannehill. I could see him in the Titans' offense with Hooker.
That may be a column. I see Caleb's wheels moving. So there we go. Coming up on the program, want to talk about Bill Connolly's piece on returning talent. The Vols are in the bottom half of not only the SEC, but all of college football. What does that mean moving forward? And it can't be great, but portions of the program brought to you by Andy Mason Real Estate, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Over 40 years of experience in his office. Andy Mason has the best prices, has the best service in all of the real estate market there in Knoxville. So you want to check him out, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Back in 2 minutes. The Vols, according to Bill Connolly of ESPN, have a long way to go to be able to overcome the talent loss that we just discussed that is on the way to the NFL Combine. 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here, Viles Automotive on Calhoun Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. It's about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Viles Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Chattanooga, we're at it again. For the 5th year in a row, you voted us best of the best criminal and DUI law firm.
And finalist for best law firm and best personal injury firm.
Thank you for the love, Chattanooga. We won't let you down.
Our family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Well, we all knew that Tennessee was going to lose a lot in terms of production. When you lose a Jalen Hyatt, a Biletnikoff winner, and Hendon Hooker, one of the most explosive players in college football, you knew that going in. So Bill Connolly of ESPN wrote a piece on lost production. I say wrote a piece. It sounds like he just calculated a piece. But 63% of Tennessee's production is gone from last season. Caleb, that is a slightly bigger number than I thought. But when you lose Hooker, when you lose Hyatt, I guess it doesn't completely blow me away. Tennessee still should be good at the receiver position, still should be good at the running back position. The quarterback position is up for debate, but you have two to choose from in Joe Milton and Nico Iamaleava. And I believe that one of those guys will be at least proficient, if not standouts. I happen to think it's going to be Nico, but I'm in the minority there. So David says, so if you have 80% of your production returning and that production stuck it up, is that really a positive? I'd rather improve with better new talent than return poor talent. True, especially on the defensive side of the ball. If we were to do this and say that Tennessee returns only 30% of their tackles for loss and those players that accounted for that, then you probably get more with a more athletic, bigger, more physical group. And I think Tennessee's eventually going to have that. But as for the...
Well, let me raise your alarm on that, though, real quick.
Raise my alarm.
Because here's the problem. Tennessee is, as far per the article, they are 69th overall in returning production. They're top 50 in returning defensive production. They return much more production on defense. Where they're struggling is returning offensive production. They're number 96. So basically, they lost all the production that made them elite last year, and they return all the production that made them horrible last year.
Okay. On the defensive side. So on the offensive side, what's his summary? What's his hypothesis as far as moving forward? I guess he's taken out Hooker's numbers and Jalen Hyatt's numbers, right?
Yeah, it would be Hendon Hooker's and Jalen Hyatt's, and obviously to a certain degree Cedric Tillman. But to be fair, they're not among his most likely to regress teams, Tennessee. They actually are not in as bad a shape, according to Bill Connolly, as Alabama, TCU, Kansas State, or Texas San Antonio, or Iowa. God, Iowa regressing. I thought Iowa was horrible last year.
Yeah, they were already regressed.
Yeah.
Funny that he brings up Alabama because, I'm hearing that they're not locked into Jalen Milroe as being the starter. So they might have real questions at several different skill positions.
Yeah, they were carried by 2 or 3 players last year, and those 2 or 3 players are gone. So
yeah, Bryce Young being the most noteworthy. Tennessee is going to be just fine as long as they get B to B plus play at the quarterback position. And whether that's Milton or Nico, they're fine. I think they find somebody to plug in there with Jalen Hyatt. They showed that before with Velus Jones. And then they showed that last year with Jalen Hyatt. I mean, eventually you get that guy, and we'll see who that guy is. We thought it might be Squirrel White. We've kind of bounced around a little bit there, but I just don't see Tennessee, even with that number thrown out there, that they should be overly concerned as long as they get good quarterback play.
So that's the thing. I agree there's a big next man up mentality with Tennessee. I still think there's a chemistry factor too. We talked about this yesterday, ranking one of the reasons you had for why Tennessee's offense you thought was so good was chemistry. And I think part of that chemistry was playing together for 2 years. So I think they've got new talent to plug in, but I mean, can you really replace like the guys last year? They've been playing in Heupel's system for 2 years, but they've been playing together for at least 3 years. I mean, all of them were part of Jeremy Pruitt's offense beforehand, and they've been practicing with each other since at least spring of 2020. And so,
well, yes and no. Dylan Sampson hadn't been a part of that. Jalen Hyatt admittedly took the 2021 offseason off. So, yeah, have they been practicing for that long? Was everybody on board in 2021? I don't know.
I mean, they were familiar with everybody to a certain degree. I mean, now maybe with receivers it's different. It's so easy to play receiver in this system. I mean, I've never seen a system just as long as you can run. I mean, this is in a certain way, it reminds me of Urban Meyer's spread offense back in the day. Remember when Urban Meyer literally recruited track stars to run horizontally? And you didn't really need to know anything about Jeff Demps is probably like the best example of that.
Yeah.
And if you've got speed, you can it's so easy to play in the system.
Yeah, it's very simple. So I just don't, for that reason, I don't see Tennessee the fall off having in production having a bad year just because of that. There are a lot of other teams you'd point to. I mean, I got so many questions about Alabama's offense, actually more than I do about Tennessee's offense. We shall see. Guys, certainly appreciate it. Being on the message board means a lot. Hit that like button, the thumbs up button if you haven't already. If you haven't subscribed, you have to do that. We've got Jacob Warren on the YouTube channel. We'll have Cooper Mays as well a little bit later today. So have a fantastic day, everyone. We're with you at 10 o'clock Eastern each and every weekday live. Be sure and check out the videos that we're able to put out from the show on our YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate it. And David closes us out with Brew McCoy wasn't either was Hooker. Hooker never played a snap for Pruitt.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Very, very fair point. Have a great Thursday, everyone. Weather's nice, I think. Off the Hook Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm